Whoever holds a debt holds a treasure. Baronet 5 said it the way other men clear their throats, a habit, not a proclamation, as he set his signature on the transit office's contract slate. Across the grey dock of Alshane, the representative of biosynthetic Hesperia watched the android's chrome fingers move with the unhurried precision of someone who had never once been in a hurry and never would be. The Gearian comes back intact, the representative said. Hull, drive, stasis bays. No structural damage. That's non-negotiable. It rarely is, with your kind, Baronet said. 2,200 TC. Net. The representative nodded, and the number cleared into Baronet's account. A moment later, a flicker of light on his optical display, gone as fast as it arrived. He didn't wait to see if the figure held. He opened a hedge position against it instantly, the way another man might pocket cash before counting it. Tontacoin never sat still long enough to be trusted. Then he read the transponder logs pulled from the stolen freighter, and did the arithmetic that mattered more than the money. Cryogenic enzyme cultures, stasis-locked, unstable outside controlled cold, 72 hours before the cargo cooked itself into worthless sludge. He reached up and seated the Ethelgard optical lectern into his own eye socket. A sliver of synthetic sapphire, absurdly expensive, prized not for any tactical edge, but for the purity of the color it gave him. Blue, cold, and clean, under the flat dock. Light. Let's begin the audit, he murmured. Theron Vance met his usual buyer in a private berth 2 hours later, expecting a clean handoff. He'd worked with the man twice before. This time the buyer's tablet chimed mid-conversation, and his face changed before he'd even finished reading. I can't take it, he said. You agreed to a price yesterday. I have a maintenance debt on 4 hangars I've been carrying for 6 years. Somebody just offered to erase it. Contingent on me not touching your cargo. Vance didn't ask who. He didn't need to. He watched the man's console flatten into a single cold line of text, transaction denied by port policy, and understood, standing alone on the empty dock, that whoever was coming for him wasn't interested in a fight. He was interested in starving him first. The cryo bays needed refrigerant within the day, and the exchange rate at the Alshane market had gone predatory, the Tontacoin had slid overnight, and the dealer wasn't shy about pricing that in. Standard containers ran 50 TC each, when they were available at all. Most of the stock had already been bought out that morning, quietly, by someone who'd called in an old favor with the warehouse foreman. Vance stood in front of a wall of sealed cylinders stamped with a chrome signature. That wasn't his, and did the math on what he had left. He turned back toward the ship. He wasn't finished. Not yet. He wasn't finished, and he proved it inside the hour. A decommissioned cargo berth on the far rim of Alshane still had power conduits running to it, unmonitored, forgotten. Vance cracked the auxiliary grid with the kind of blunt military competence that came from a war he didn't talk about, and ran a direct thermal tap from the asteroid's own generators into the Gearian's cooling manifold. It wasn't elegant. 2 transformers in the local grid burned out taking the load. But the stasis bays stabilized, and the ship's transponder signature vanished from every passive scanner on the station. 200 meters away, in a private office, the numbers on Baronet's optical feed dropped out mid-trace. He studied the gap for a long moment, a rare stillness in him, then recalculated. Adequate, he said, to no one. He didn't chase Vance through a dark hangar. That was a young man's mistake. Instead he called the station's traffic supervisor, and offered her something more useful than a manhunt, a tax-free berthing license, quietly transferred, in exchange for a single administrative signature. Cite the power failure, Baronet said. Grid instability. Close the 3 main lanes, as a precaution. She didn't ask why. Within the hour, navigation buoys along Elshane's approach. Corridors blinked over to hazard orange, and every unregistered vessel in the sector found itself with nowhere to jump from. Vance felt the lockdown before he saw it, the Gearian pinned in the debris belt of Elshane Beta, no clean route out, no way to hide the fact that he was now exactly where his enemy wanted him. He went looking for the old maps instead, the analog charts, the automated buoys. Had never learned to read. An archivist kept them in a back office off the main concourse, physical volumes nobody digitized because nobody needed them anymore. I need the mining transit charts. Elshane Beta, pre-network. The archivist didn't look up from what he was doing. Exclusive consultation rights were purchased about 10 minutes ago. Digital deposit. 250 TC. By who? Wasn't a who. It was a drone. Vance stood in the doorway a moment, watching the archivist slide the old tomes back onto their shelf, and understood that his options had just been reduced to one. A single dead-end sector, and a ship too valuable to abandon. He took the Gearian into a fissure in Elshane Beta's crust, deep enough that the iron-rich rock scrambled sensor returns from anything short of a direct pass. It was also deep enough that a single miscalculated burn would open the hull against stone. He worked the auxiliary thrusters by hand, easing the freighter's mass through a corridor barely wider than her beam, listening to the hull groan against pressure differentials that had nothing to do with vacuum. Somewhere below the deck plating, a subtle shift in the cabin air told him the improvised cooling rig was starting to fail. Under its own borrowed power. He didn't have long. The subsystem he jury-rigged from the dead berth's generators began to collapse. Under its own thermal load, and the stasis batteries dropped below 12%. Vance looked at what was left of his options and didn't like either of them. Leave the fissure and risk capture at the public docks. Stay, and watch 18,000 TC in. Ship and cargo turned to waste around him. The cryo bay filled with a low amber warning glow. Condensation began beating on the enzyme containers. Then a clean, encrypted signal blinked once on a closed channel, and held. Baronet's private shuttle settled across the fissure's only exit, unhurried, blocking it without fanfare. He opened optical comms to the Gearian's bridge. "You've done well," he said. "Better than most. That matters to me less than you'd think." Vance said nothing. His hands stayed on the controls. "Here is what happens next. You hand me the ship and the cargo, undamaged, within the hour. In return, I settle the grid damage with the port authority myself. The burn transformers, the outage, all of it. That incident dies here. What I don't do is volunteer anything else I happen to know about you to people who haven't asked me yet." Baronet paused, letting the silence do some of the work. "And you don't leave with nothing. I'll put you in a light transport. Modest. Fully legal. Yours, clean, to operate as you like. You're offering me a ship for surrendering the one I already have. I'm offering you a future that doesn't end in a Hesperia holding cell, or in that fissure with a dead cargo and no fuel. Weigh it." Vance did. He ran it the way he'd run every calculation since the boarding 3 days ago: cargo value against capture risk against the value of simply staying alive and solvent. The Gearian was worth 18,000 TC intact. It was worth nothing to him in a cell, and less than nothing broken open in a rock fissure. "The transport," Vance said. "Clean registry. No tracker. Clean registry. No tracker. Then we have a deal." It wasn't fear that decided it. Baronet could see that much even through the shuttle's low-resolution optical feed, the flat, unhurried way Vance said it, a man closing out a bad trade rather than a man begging for his life. That, more than anything, was why Baronet didn't feel the need to gloat. Vance keyed in a Hesperia unlock codes and walked off his own prize without a backward look. Baronet handled the rest with the same economy he'd used for everything else, a logistics favor here to square the port supervisor, an old debt called in from a scrapper who'd owed him for years, in exchange for a light hauler, legally registered, fully airworthy. He transferred the deed to Vance's name personally. Vance stood on the bridge of his new ship a few minutes later, smaller than the Georian by an order of magnitude, unglamorous, and entirely his own. No Hesperia alert trailing him out of the sector. No port authority asking about a burned-out grid. The comm crackled once more, Baronet's voice cool and final. "Remember, you owe me a favor. And I'll probably collect." At the main docks, Hesperia's representative confirmed the Georian's cargo intact, down to the last sealed enzyme cartridge, and released the 2200 TC, net, cleared, no volatility left to hedge against. Baronet retired to a private terrace above the dock and drew a slow cycle of thermal coolant through his chassis. Through the sapphire clarity of the Ethelgard lens, he watched Vance's new ship clear the port boundary, small and unremarkable against the dark, and jump clean into open space. He watched until the point of light was gone.